Hi makers, it's Anouk here from Makers Loft with another great project from our Makers Box range. In your junior sewing pack, you would have received a bunch of goodies. Most importantly, some sewing patterns, a range of different colours of felt, a needle with some pins, thread, wadding, and some extra little goodies to design with. So you've got some extra colours of felt here, some different prints of fabric, and some buttons. Ideally, it would help to have some fabric scissors and some paper scissors. The fabric scissors need to be quite sharp to be able to cut through the felt. So let's begin. Make sure you've got a nice open work area and get yourself set up. We're going to start with cutting out the little dog, which is going to be our first project. So cut nice and slow on the line, and remember, the better your cut, the better you can get it onto your fabric. So if you do a really uneven cut, you're not going to be able to cut it very nicely onto your felt either. Next, we're going to choose what colour we would like our little dog to be. So I'm going to go this soft yellow colour. And I'm also going to make sure that when I pin it as close to an edge or a corner as possible so that I'm not wasting any fabric. We can use some of the fabric for other things. So next you will need your pins that have been provided, and you are going to pin down the pattern onto your fabric. So the best way to place your pins in is to poke them until you hit the table, and with the pin pull it up and fold the fabric over to come back out. You need to go in and back out for the pins to hold their place. And it's just to stop the paper from moving while you're cutting. So you shouldn't need too many pins. Just put one more along the back there. So grab your fabric scissors if you have them, otherwise any sharp scissors will do, and slowly start cutting around the outside of your pattern. Do this nice and slowly and follow the lines of your pattern. Once you've cut around the outside, you can remove the pins. If you can, put them back in the holes so that they don't fall on the ground and end up hurting someone. Next, we're going to choose what colour the ears are going to be. So I might use some of these smaller pieces of felt I think I'll use pink ears. And then maybe choose a fabric for the inside of the ears. So I'll start with cutting the fabric. The fabric is optional. You can just do felt if you like. Make sure you cut 2, because remember, a dog has ears on both sides of its head. So let's pin the fabric and the felt together of the ear. We're now going to design the face of our dog. So I'm just going to mark out where I think a little eye would look very cute. And I'm thinking about there. And we'll attach the ear there. You can also do a nose if you like, but I'm going to leave that at this point. We can also add that in later. So before we attach the 2 sides together, we're going to start doing some sewing. So grab your needle and choose the color you would like to use around the outside of the ear. I'm going to go with the blue. I think it would go really nice with the flowers. And let's grab about an arm length of the blue. Now to thread the needle, the best thing is to hold the thread between your index finger and your thumb as short as possible and bring the needle over the thread and hold it with your thumb, pulling on the thread. Now this bit here is called the tail, and the long bit is what we're going to be sewing with. And what we need to do is we need to tie a knot on the end. So we're just going to tie a simple knot by twisting and bringing the end through the loop and pulling that tight. So first I'm going to show you how to do a very basic back stitch. We're going to start coming in from the bottom, which is going to be the felt side, and we're going to pull on our needle until it reaches that knot that we've just created and we can't go any further. Careful not to pull too hard or the knot might pull through. Next, we're going to go 1 stitch forward and you're back, and you're back at the bottom again, and then just past where you've come out, you're going to go back up again. Make sure you're going through both of your fabrics. Pull that back up. Next, we're going to go 1 step back and we're going to go back through the hole of our previous down stitch. We're going to go down through that same hole. Slowly pull that through. And you have what's called a back stitch. Now we're going to go past it again. And back through the previous down stitch. and back through the previous stitch. Just adjusting my pin so that it's not in the way. And continue to do that the whole way around the outside of the ear. So you've now learnt how to do a back stitch. To tie off a stitch, always make sure you tie it off at the back, and all you need to do is just go through the back layer, in and out, pull that until you have a loop, and go through the loop twice and pull it tight. It is now safe to cut. You can clean up the edges a little bit. Just watch out not to go too close to your stitching. And pin your ear onto one side. Grab yourself another length of thread, about an arm length. Thread your needle. Pull on the tail and tie a knot on the long end of your thread. We're going to come in from the bottom again. Down. Pull until it stops at the knot. Go just past where you went down before. Pull it the whole way through and back down your previous stitch. Pull all the way through, go just past and back down the same hole of your previous stitch. Repeat this process the whole way around. Finish off your stitch at the back by going in and out just on one layer of your fabric, creating a loop, and going through that loop twice. And pulling it tight. Make sure that you're pinning the ear on the correct side. Now we're going to do the eye, so I'm going to get some black. Thread your needle, pull on the tail, tie a knot at the end. When you start, always make sure you start from the inside so that you can't see the little end on the other side of the knot there. Okay, we're going to come up through the little dot that we created with our pencil. Stop at the knot, down right next to it. Come up from the bottom. And cross over to the other side to create a little cross. This same stitch can be used to sew on the buttons as well. So if you want to add any buttons to your characters, those 4 dots are the same as the 4 dots we've created there. So you go diagonal, up one, down the next, come from underneath and up one and cross over to the other side. Tie off the back by holding the 2 together and bringing your thread through the loop and pulling it tight. And it might be good to just do that twice. So next we are going to attach the 2 sides. So the plan is to keep that bottom half there open to put the wadding into. So let's start pinning. So I'm going to mark out where I'm going to leave it open. Get much more thread this time. Give your thread a nice sharp cut, which will make it easier to get through the eye of the needle. Pull on the tail and tie a knot at the long end. I'm actually going to do a double knot, one on top of the other, so that it's a nice thick knot. Okay, so we're going to start here and we're going to work our way all the way around, and then we're going to stop there and put the wadding in. So to start your sewing, we're actually going to come in from in between the 2 layers so that the other side of the knot will sit in between there. I'm going to pull it the whole way through, tuck that in, and we're now going to go back down just next to it. You will now learn how to do a blanket stitch. So we're going to pull it through until we have a loop like this. So once we've come down, we're going to bring our needle through the loop and pull it tight. This is the first step to the blanket stitch, and you can now take that pin out if it's getting in your way. Every stitch from here on will come in from the bottom. So we're going to go up from the bottom, and then we're going to use the thread from our previous stitch, and we're going to bring it around the needle and then pull the needle. Bring the thread the whole way through, and again come on from the bottom, loop around the needle, pull the thread the whole way through. Pull it nice and tight as you go. Come in from the bottom, thread around the needle, pull around the needle, nice and tight. Coming from the bottom, around the needle, pull tight. If for any reason you have forgotten to do this, you can still, while you have a loop like this, pull the needle through the loop too. The main thing is that you're pulling it tight as you go, because you don't want any gaping holes where the wadding's gonna come out the sides. So after every stitch, make sure you pull it tight. It also helps when you're pulling on your needle, as you're pulling it through, pinching where the thread enters your needle so that it doesn't slide undone as you're pulling on it. So pinch it right there and pull it through, that way it doesn't slide off. You've now learned how to do a blanket stitch. We're going to continue this the whole way around the outside until we get to where we've got that pin to put the wadding in. We're now going to attach the ears to the body, and we're going to include them into our blanket stitch. So coming from the bottom, you've got 4 layers to go through. Make sure you've grabbed all 4 layers, otherwise the ears will fall off. So I've ended up with 4 stitches holding the ears on at the top, and then I'm going to go back to the 2 layers. As you get a little bit further along your project, you might find that the tail gets a little bit long and gets in the way of your stitching. So just pull on your tail a little bit to shorten it so that it doesn't get caught up in your blanket stitch. If you run out of string, it might be a good idea to add some before it gets too short so that you've got room to tie some knots. So I'm just going to extend my thread here by another arm length and just simply tie a knot as close to your stitch as possible. You can also do this by sticking the needle into the knot and sliding it along to get it as close to as possible. It's best to do a double knot. I'm going to cut it just long enough so I can tuck it inside, and hopefully you shouldn't be able to see where you've added on an extra bit. So we've reached the bottom of the belly where we were leaving open the wadding area. So open up your little bag of wadding and gently pull out small amounts and start feeding it into your, make sure you take the pins out, and start feeding it into the face to start with. And sometimes it helps to just grab a pencil or something to be able to poke in a little bit further. And then towards the back, you probably won't be able to get anything into the tail because it's too thin. And the last little bit to fill will be the belly. So now we're going to just put a pin in down there to hold it all together to finish our stitching. So we're now going to finish doing our blanket stitch and meet up to where we started. So we're now back to where we started. I'm going to do a normal blanket stitch to meet up. Once I've pulled that through, I'm going to go down come out the bottom. Once you've got that loop, you can go around that loop through twice and pull it tight. Once you've created a nice sturdy knot, bring your needle into your character. Come out any way you like. Cut it right next to the fabric. Fluff it up, it's gone. You can take the pin out now and you have your little dog. So you can, if you want to, put a little nose on the tip there if you want to do another little black stitch there. I'm going to create a little bed for the dog. So the box that you've been provided with is so that you can make a little bed. So with this felt here, I'm going to make a cushion. So measure out the size of your box, put some pins in your fabric. Thread your needle and tie a knot on the long end. So same as before with our blanket stitch. We're going to start in this corner and we'll leave one end open to put the wadding in before we close it. So go in between the two layers, pull all the way through, and then go down just next to it until you have a loop. Put the needle through the loop and pull it tight. That's the start to your blanket stitch. Now you can go on as normal, coming from the bottom, bring the thread around the needle and pull. So we're coming up to the last corner now, where we're going to just stop for a minute and get the wadding in to our little pillow. So take all the pins out. And again, feed it right down the end first and whack your way to the front slowly. You don't want the cushion to be too chunky, so just a little bit is fine. And finish off your blanket stitch on that last end. You can, if you like, if you want to make it a little bit easier for yourself, just put a pin in there to hold it shut. I'm going to go around the corner to meet up with where I started. Last stitch back in where I started. And now I'm just going to go back in, back out, 1, 2 through the loop, pull it tight, put it inside your cushion and come out wherever you like. And cut it close to the fabric. And you have your little cushion. So let's make our bed. We're now going to sew our little cat. Choose your color arrangement. You can make these in a whole range of colors. Feel free to make these in a range of colors. Seems as though the cat is more than likely your second project. You might want to get a little bit more creative. So let's add a tail. You can design this tail yourself by just cutting whatever shape you like. Before we attach the face to the body, we will do all the stitching of the eyes, the whiskers, and attach the nose on. So let's start with that first. For this, I'm going to use black so that it's visible and has a strong contrast with the background. Make sure that all your end knots are on the inside of the face. I'm going to do a back stitch to attach the nose. So I'm going to come up from the bottom, one stitch forward, back up again, and back down the same hole as the previous stitch. I will mark out where the eyes are going to be. You don't need to cut the thread because it's all on the inside. So we're going to around the back from behind. I'm going to cut across to where the eye is going to be. We'll use the back stitch to draw the line of the eye. From behind you can cross over to the next eye. And finish it off at the back. Bring it through one of the loops of your stitch. Once you have a loop, you can bring your needle through twice. Pull it tight and cut it. Decide where you want your face to sit and place a pin to hold it in place. Remember to come in from the back. I'm going to use a running stitch to stitch around the outside of the face. Use the same cross stitch as what we used for the eye of the dog to attach the tail onto the body of the cat. Flip over the front of your cat and place some pins around the outside to help you hold it in place. I'm going to do a blanket stitch around the outside, but if you like, you can also use a running stitch around the outside. I've chosen a light blue to go around the outside. We're going to do the same as we did with the dog, and we're going to leave an opening at the bottom to feed the wadding through. Once you've finished your last stitch before you get to the opening, pull the pins out and place the wadding inside the cat, starting by pushing it to the top and working your way to the bottom. Pin the bottom to help close it off. twice through the loop. Tuck your needle into the body and cut it as close to the fabric as possible.